so much. This event has been planned for over months now, and I was in the spirit getting ready to come here, and this morning my wife was taken to hospital. So we took her to King's Hospital, and the doctors are attending. But I said that no matter what the devil puts on my way, I will be here. I greet you all with the greetings of peace. In my native Igbo language, we say Udo Delonu, which means peace be upon you. I'm here this morning to talk about a nation. Oftentimes we hear Africans generally being described by tribe. And we are 60 million, over 60 million people in the world. As at the last estimate, we were over 80 million people spread in West African sub-region up to Cameroon and Guinea-Bissau, occupying 5 states in Nigeria, which is Imo State, Anambra, Enugu State, Ebonyi State, Delta, Rivers State, Benue, and all the rest, about 7 states in general. So when history writes about us, they talk about us as a tribe, and I sometimes think to myself, how did we as black people get to this level where we are described as tribes, although we are a nation? Some nations in the world are less than 3 million people, and they are described as nation, and then 80 million people are described as a tribe. I feel it's in terms of what my younger sister Chimamanda Adichie described as a single story narrative. Now, the Igbo nation is made up of over 80 million people. I've said we live in Abia State, Anambra State, and all the eastern part of West Africa, juxtaposed within the Nigerian geographical entity. We want to see ourselves as Igbos. We currently refer to ourselves as Biafrans. And this has a story behind it, because if you are living in this world and you do not tell your story, nobody will tell your story for you. And oftentimes, what we black people tend to do is to criticize others for not telling our stories, but that is not true. Growing up as a young child, I knew London Bridge was falling down. I knew Tom and Jerry, who would fight and never die, kill each other. I knew about Scooby-Doos and all the rest. But then growing up, I was opportuned to be born at a time, 2 years after I was born, 3 years after I was born, the war between Nigeria and Biafra started. So I was a child of war. And you can imagine when you're growing up as a child and the only parties you attended were funerals, because that was the only place we could go to get some respite, to get people to talk to and maybe eat some food before the bombs begin to drop. Growing up, we were used to being dressed in red, because according to the philosophy at that time, the bombs, when the planes are flying over, we will look like flowers. So it would save some of us. I was born at a time when I watched my younger brother die in my arms because my mother went to look for salt, and then they dropped a bomb and the scrap metal hit him and he died. But that was our growing up. But even as Igbos, at that time, we lost 3 million people. The whole of the money in our banks were seized. We were given only 20 pounds. But our people never, ever, ever stopped believing in themselves. Our houses were seized all over Nigeria. My father had houses which were seized up to today. We've not recovered. But even with 20 pounds, we bounced back. We showed the world that you can never keep a resilient people down. The Igbo society was created years, centuries before. When you think about the ancient kingdom, you talk about the Kanem-Borno Empire, you talk about the Mali Empire, you talk about the Zimbabwe kingdoms, you talk about the Mutapa kingdom, you talk about the Ethiopian kingdom, the Congo kingdoms, and then you talk about the Aro kingdom. And I had the singular opportunity to have come from the Aro Kingdom. All over the world, we are the only people you can refer to as Mazi. Mazi is an initial to our name. It's not Mr. It shows, it carries more spiritual and more traditional connotation when you are a Mazi. It means you're from the Aro Kingdom, and history has not been favorable to us. 90% or 60% of the Caribbeans, people found in the Caribbean, in Cuba, and let me be specific, in Cuba, Brazil, Cuba, Brazil, and some aspects of the Caribbean land. Most of them happen to come from Igbo land. And I'm here to say something today. Most of the people that we refer to as slaves were never slaves. These were victims of war, captured after war and taken away to the plantations of the West. So I don't want you to live here today with this connotation that any African was a slave. These were peaceful people. We lived in our sub-regions. There were some elements of miscreants within the African continent that might have involved themselves in the sale of their own brothers and sisters. But that is a very minute percentage. From the Aro Kingdom, we had a war with the British Empire for more than 1 year. Our kings were killed, our able-bodied men were taken away from the Aro Kingdom, and we had the gods of our land, which was called the Ibinu Babia, described by the West as the Long Juju of Arochukwu. Arochukwu was the greatest nation on earth. Then, at that time, in the whole of Igbo land, we were like the Supreme Court, where people came to seek for justice, where people came to seek for protection. We established the free trade that existed in Africa at that time. No Aro child or business person would go anywhere in the world for business and be attacked. That meant that the whole Aro Kingdom would come to you and revenge for their child. So when you are a Mazi, you're automatically protected from free trade. And we traded with the Portuguese before even the colonial masters came. These things are not written in history. When you talk about the Aro history, you would often read in places like Wikipedia and Google, which I have challenged a lot, that the Aros were slave traders. No, they had a system of, we had no police station in Igbo land. We had no prisons in Igbo land. When you went for justice, they took you to the Aro Kingdom. If you're found guilty, there was a particular settlement that you would be kept free, not bound by chains and bars and everything, but you understand that you are found guilty and you are not wanted in any other part of the community in Igbo land. Therefore, you have been given this place to stay, and most of them stayed. So we did not have a system where we had police. We had a communal system. We had kings, but our kings were not overbearing, because we had stratas where the Omunna was the decision-making body of the state. The king was good. We had Ezes and Igwes and all the rest, but they were not authoritative over us. Because in Igbo land we say, Adachi Wachiane Esi Igweso. You do not rule over the Igbos, you follow them. So when we say Igbo Kwenu, it means, have we agreed to discuss? We say, yeah. Igbo Kwenu, and they say, we say, yeah. Igbo Kwezuonu, then we have agreed to begin a conversation. And during that conversation, please repeat those again. Because if they don't answer you, it means you're on your own. It means that the Igbos are not in agreement with what you're saying. And that is one thing that people don't understand about my race. Because they think that we are not united. No, we are a communal, a cosmopolitan society. There is no family in Igbo land today that you will not find a graduate. The minimum will be a master's degree holder. Because we do not believe that wealth can stay in only one place. We believe that wealth distribution makes a society safe. Therefore, growing up, I had close to 5 people in my family that my father was paying their school fees, taking care of. They were not seen as help, they were seen as the family. Because when we go home for Christmas, we would always have a meeting. And which is the family that is suffering? We go there, you take a child from that family, train the child. So they were not seen as helps. I saw them as cousins. And up to today, we have the best sort of human relationship. Igbo land has produced many writers, of which you know Chino Achebe, our younger sister Chima Amanda, Nnamdi Kanos, K.O. Mbadiwes of the world, Zeeks of Africa. We had Mbono Ojikes of the world, and myself, Mazi Obi Okoli, still making impact in the world. And we talk about, we have women that have done so well, Cyprian Ekwensi, Buchi, Chiemeka, Tony Ubeche, and these people were the people who made us who we are today. Because when I was growing up, like Chimamanda described in the narrative, she talked about reading foreign books. All we knew was Animal Farms and the Macbeths. But suddenly, these men that I have mentioned went into our culture and began to educate us. When I went to university, I chose not to write my thesis in English. I chose to write in my native language. Because my argument was, why would I write in English, which is not my language? And I was reading linguistics at that time before I went to read international law diplomacy. So I challenged the school authority to say, I need to speak and write about myself before I write about somebody that I don't know so much about, apart from what I've seen on black and white TVs and everything. So my thesis was written in Igbo language, and I called it the semantic analysis of Igbo proverbs. What I tried to do was to save for the future generation the need for proverbs in Igbo language, the need for our language. We are blessed with such a wonderful language that one word can mean 7 things depending on the tonal way you present it. So no other language in the world has such beauty. When I listen to the South Africans speak and it comes out of that, I'm like, this is something unique that nobody. But we have to tell our stories. Yes. We have to begin to be proud of who we are. At a very tender age, I refused picking up the English name. My father gave me the beautiful name, Obi Okoli. Obiora means the mind of the people. Why would I want to change that name to a foreign name that I am not identified with? So at that time, I would pick up a fight with anybody who called me the name Godwin, and it became a problem in school. So my dad was like, why are you doing this? I said, I don't want to be called by that name. I have a beautiful name, which is Obi, the mind of the people. Please call me that. And until today, I have maintained that. I think growing up, we had a lot of experiences. And when I look at the black young male today, I weep. I weep. There is nothing they have been through that we have not been through the worst. So when I hear them make excuses for failure, I begin to ask myself, where are the parents? Because sometimes I don't blame them. There was a program we had once which we called Peculiar. It was passionately expressing Christ until lives are changed. And we had the opportunity of having a counseling session, and a lot of young people came in. And my heart wept when these young men and women broke down to tell us about their pain, their agonies. And I tell you the truth, when I look at every one of us here, I can put the blame on us. Because we need to understand that a proper black child needs both parents. Yes. We must stop making this attitude of bringing up children to using them as weapons of warfare. Because I have seen separated families that I have gone to talk to. Mothers denying their fathers of their children, fathers denying their mothers of their children of their mother. We have to stop this. Both parents need to bring these children up. And that is why we are seeing what we are seeing in the world today. Where the parents, these young boys, lack the proper training of a mother. They lack the presence of a father. We leave them at the middle point where they become decision makers at a very tender age. And when we spoke to these children, I felt bad. Because if both parents are together today, my children understand why they are from the Arab kingdom. Because my father instilled that in me, that I will never be scared of a human being in my life. I don't know what fear is. I speak from my heart, but I stand by the truth. Because he said, in Igbo language, it means that truth is life. There cannot be life without truth. So if you understand the power of truth, live by truth and let the children know the truth. The black race is not a race to be pitied. I do not need your pity because I've been through everything in the world. What can There is nothing the world can bring to me today that I have not been through. Born during war, saw bombs, saw bodies drop. What can the world do that's to a black person like me? Nothing. Nothing. So why would I be scared to go there and conquer? Because as a black race, my mother always say, you need to be strong from home to go out there to conquer. If you are weak from home, you cannot conquer the world. So we need a strong home. We need a strong family. We need stronger foundation in the black race. We need children that will understand the culture of our people. Do not think because of religion. Religion is not, we did not bring it in. It was imported. We had unique religion in Africa, in my town, in my land. You cannot kill. It was against the God of the land, and Chukwukikabiama, the God of earth. And when you kill and you spill innocent blood on the land, there are consequences not only to you, but to the community. So at an infant age, we learned that you don't take lives. But today, do our children understand that? My children do, because they will know that the consequences will be there for them, even up to the 10th generation. So they must understand that taking of any person's life is contrary to our culture. These things, all these cultural things, when we started the Igbo Festival of Arts and Culture, I came in here and there was no place, my people, they had parties in the hall, and I said to myself, how do our children understand their culture? How do they begin to identify with who they are? My daughter asked me once, she said, Daddy, why is it that many other Igbo children don't speak Igbo? I said, it's their parents, not them. Because we need to educate ourselves to understand that a child has 3 languages, can speak fluently 3 languages and acquire the 4th one. Linguistically, it has been proved. I speak 4 languages. I speak Igbo, I speak German, I speak French, and to a very large extent I understand and speak passable Yoruba. Because I have stepbrothers who are Yoruba, so I have to learn it. But then, we don't understand the power behind language. Because with language comes culture and tradition. They are all embedded into themselves. And when we instill this in our children, they have an identity and they become proud of who they are. If you ask my child, where are you from? She will not tell you Igbo. She will say Arondi Zob, the village where my ancestors come from. And that is where I take them often and I show them where their ancestors come from. Physical sight has a lot to do with knowledge. Take them, teach them, show them, and you will believe that you will create a generation that will be proud and not begin to say, I did not get this job because I'm black. No. Go out there, you don't get that job, pray over it, go to the next job. Move to the next profession. Identify the professions where black people are doing very well. Do not be stereotyped. Do not believe in the single narrative that blacks cannot be best. Look at Igbos today. We produced the best literature experts. We produced nurses, countable numbers of doctors. Look at NHS today. You will be shocked that apart from the Yoruba tribe, nation, the next Igbo nation produces largest number of doctors, nurses, and IT consultants. Because we are a people who believe in the philosophy of the chameleon. When the chameleon comes into an environment, and it looks at the environment, it takes the nature of that environment. And that is one thing that we do. Wherever I go, I adopt into that place, and I begin to want to make achievement. I leave you today with the greatest of peace. Like I said in my native Igbo language, we say Udo Dilon.